Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Israel Hawkins. Today, Jeff, we're going to quite a lot of articles to cover. Update on the kidnapping victims in Cleveland, Ohio, who were held for 10 years captive, as well as the IRS bringing forth an apology. Now, that's a shocker to many, as well as the update on the explosion that rocked the little town of West Texas.
We also have Syria once again in the news. We have an article showing that the climate is still getting worse. And we're also going to talk about the NRA. They had an annual meeting. Some interesting things were said from there.
And we're going to top it off with Russia supplying weapons to Syria. But first in our news, in Cleveland, Ohio, the last of the kidnapped victims was released from the hospital. Michelle Knight was abducted in 2002. She was rescued along with two others. A paternity test recently released revealed that the little girl born in captivity is the daughter of one of the kidnapped victims, Amanda Berry. The girl, only 6 years old now, spent her entire life up to the point of their rescue in captivity.
The now empty house on Seymour Street in the urban Cleveland neighborhood has been sealed up by the FBI. It was there that little Jocelyn was born in a plastic kiddie pool on December 25th in 2006. Now, fellow captive Michelle Knight helped with the birth, reviving the baby twice when she stopped breathing. Now, again, lab results confirm that the abductor, Ariel Castro, is the father.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine said concerning possible charges, you talk about multiple rapes, you talk about all the things he was doing to these victims, and the fact is that this child is in fact certain. It confirms that the victim, what she was saying concerning the abuse, was actually taking place. But he also says Michelle Knight was the last to leave the hospital and was reportedly held the longest of the three kidnapped victims.
Her account of her captivity is in the Cleveland police report, now 32. At the time of her abduction, she was considered a runaway. She stated in her report to police that at least 5 times she was pregnant by the suspect, Ariel Castro. When he found out that she was pregnant, he made her abort the baby. She continued, he starved her for 2 weeks and then would repeatedly punch her in the stomach until she miscarried.
The lab work on Ariel Castro is not totally complete. FBI officials are entering his profile into a national database to see if it links him with any other crimes.
Now here's a shocker. The Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, admitted that some of its employees unjustly targeted conservative political groups applying for tax-exempt status. The extra scrutiny that they received was in violation of its own policy and despite its earlier denials. The IRS said it found out about the allegation last year, and now the inspectors general of the Treasury Department and the IRS are investigating.
The head of the Portage County, Ohio Tea Party, Tom Zawistowski, along with dozens of other Tea Party members, complained to the IRS that they were being unfairly targeted. Allegations which the IRS strongly denied until recently. Zawistowski's battle for tax-exempt status went on for 3 years starting in 2009. He said the IRS wanted all kinds of documents from the names of all the members in his organization to printouts of every Facebook page that he had.
At a lawyers' conference in Washington, Lois Lerner, a senior IRS career employee who oversees tax-exempt organizations, admitted that agency employees singled out particular groups for extra scrutiny using keywords in her statement with political overtones. She said in her statement, they used names like Tea Party or Patriots, and they selected cases simply because the application had those names in the title.
She continued, that was wrong, and the IRS would like to apologize for that, Lerner says. She said the targeting was done by low-level employees and it was not motivated by partisan politics, but the desire to be more efficient identifying groups that don't qualify for tax-exempt status. A learner also said, we had a shortcut in the process that the staff did, and it wasn't appropriate.
Now, in lieu of these current events, Republicans on Capitol Hill and a White House spokesman are now calling for a thorough investigation.
Continuing in the United States, a little further south in the town of West Texas, an explosion at a fertilizer plant that leveled houses, injured dozens, and killed at least one person is now being investigated as not an accident, but intentional. The Texas Department of Public Safety has announced that it is launching a criminal investigation into the cause of that explosion. They will be joining the McLennan County Sheriff's Department as the investigation continues to move forward.
In a separate event, an EMS technician in West Texas named Bryce Reed is being charged with possession of an explosive or destructive device. He was arrested by federal marshals and is being held without bond. So far, no links have been announced by authorities. Reed also spoke at the funeral services for one of his fellow EMS workers who was killed in that explosion back on April 17th.
The latest news about the climate is getting worse. U.S. government scientists working at an observatory in Hawaii reported this week that the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is higher than at any other time in history. Most scientists believe the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas is helping cause the rapid rise in carbon dioxide levels. However, Yisrael Hawkins of the House of Yahweh has been explaining the true cause of global warming.
Ralph Keeling, who runs the CO2 monitoring program at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, told CBS News in a recent interview, "We're moving into dangerous territory. There's a lot of threats to human beings in these changes. We don't know exactly how big, but it's very unlikely that we're going to get through this without major turmoil," he said. Now, Ralph believes some of the impacts of climate change are irreversible at this point. Wow. You know, very strong words there. Irreversible, he's saying.
Right. Interesting. When measurements of CO2 levels began in 1958, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was 317 parts per million. Today, the measurement is 400 parts per million. Dan Fagre, a scientist with the United States Geological Survey who studies the rapid melting of the glaciers in Montana's Glacier National Park, said, "We are into something that is very unusual." He believes that even if the climate change would stabilize, we would still lose the small glaciers in the national park. So even if it would stabilize right now and everything will level out, those glaciers would still go bye-bye.
That's right. Now, the melting glaciers in many parts of the world has contributed to the rise in sea levels. Scientists are also expecting the CO2 levels to rise, but are unsure exactly what impact this is going to have on our planet.
Yeah, I'm sure if it continues at the rate it's going, it can't be anything positive. Yeah. At the heart of the current gun debate in Washington, recent legislation on expanded background checks has been defeated in the Senate. The NRA, National Rifle Association, celebrated this defeat at their annual meeting. Wayne LaPierre, NRA's executive VP, said, "Our feet are planted firmly in the foundation of freedom, unswayed by the winds of political and media insanity. And to the political and media elites who scorn us, we say, let them be damned."
NRA's former president, David Keene, called the defeat of the background check legislation, quote, "an accomplishment that few of us would have predicted back in January." NRA members also see the background check legislation as an undue burden on legal gun owners.
NRA's newly elected president, Jim Porter, also took the stage at the annual meeting. He said that President Obama is looking for revenge on NRA members. In the past, Jim Porter has called President Barack Obama a fake president, Attorney General Eric Holder rabidly un-American, and referred to the U.S. Civil War as the War of Northern Aggression. Talk about holding a grudge.
The recent Boston bombing was also brought up at the convention. Wayne LaPierre asked the question, how many Bostonians wish they had a gun 2 weeks ago? Now, he went on to say, Boston proves it. When brave law enforcement officers did their jobs in that city so courageously, good guys with guns stop terrorists with guns. LaPierre also said that President Obama was exploiting the Newtown tragedy and that the background check legislation in the Senate would not have prevented Newtown.
Amateur video this week captured shows a series of powerful explosions in the Kassun Mountains in Syria's capital. This area houses important military installations, including an arms depot. Syrian state TV says the blasts were caused by an Israeli rocket targeting a military research center. This is the second attack on the same location this year.
One resident in Damascus described what the explosions were like. She said, we were just sitting when we felt the ground shaking and everything just started to shake. After that, we heard a very loud explosion like a boom, and then the glass. The doors went open and we heard the fall of some of the glass around us, actually blowing out their windows.
Wow. President Obama would not confirm the incident, but did make this statement. What I have said in the past and what I continue to believe is that the Israelis justifiably have to guard against the transfer of advanced weaponry to terrorist organizations like Hezbollah.
Syrian's President Bashar al-Assad made a recent rare public appearance at Damascus University and urged his supporters to carry on as usual and defeat the opposition. He said, throughout history and across cultures, terrorism has been the weapon of the cowardly. That's why they attacked the students and the teachers. But once they saw the Syrian military, those cowards fled. When we live our life, he said, and have as much normal life in the country, they will break down.
Interesting words. But sadly, Jeff, normal life for the Syrian people is fighting on the ground, shelling from the air, and neighborhoods turned completely into rubble as the world watches.
Right. Not much of a normal life.
No, I wouldn't say.
Well, Russia is back in the spotlight this week amid suspicions that they are actually supplying weapons to the Syrian government. YPN's Larry McGee has our report. Larry, are Russia distributing these weapons to Syria? Mere allegations, or is this true?
Yes, that is indeed true. And the Israeli government is now warning that the Syrian government may soon receive sophisticated surface-to-air missiles from Russia, the acquisition of which the Western alliance is saying could potentially prolong the conflict in the region. The parcel would reportedly include 6 launchers and 144 missiles capable of traveling 125 miles, and that could significantly increase Syria's ability to shield itself against airstrikes and external aggression. As Secretary of State John Kerry departed from Moscow with an agreement to co-host a conference to end the Syrian conflict, he was confronted with the leaked report that Israel had alerted the American government to a Russian effort to supply Syria with batteries of SA-300 anti-aircraft missiles, which are technical enough to intercept both manned aircraft and guided missiles, and is being hailed as a game changer for American and NATO warplanes. Commenting, Secretary Kerry says, I think we have made it crystal clear that we would prefer that Russia was not supplying assistance. We have previously stated that the missiles, particularly the Akan A-300, is a potentially destabilizing weapon with respect to the state of Israel, and so we have made it very clear historically that that is a concern of the United States. British Prime Minister David Cameron, a key NATO ally, is scheduled to visit Moscow Friday and will be here stateside to meet with President Obama next week.
Interesting. Now, in lieu of these allegations, what does Russia have to say about the distribution of these weapons, or if it's even factual?
Yes. In a press meeting recently, the Russian foreign minister commented that Russia is not planning to sell. Russia has been selling for a long time. He went on to say Russia has sold and signed contracts a long time ago and is completing supplies of anti-aircraft systems. This is not forbidden by any international law. He went on to say it is a defensive weapon and it is meant to be used defensively by a state, in this case Syria, so that the important country can defend itself against air attacks, which, as we all know, is not a fanciful scenario. This, of course, is a big move by the Russian bear in its ongoing competition for the system against the American government and the NATO forces, which are now being called the Army of the Pope. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
We appreciate your report, Larry. Katan, with so many terrible things taking place every day on earth, almost everyone is now seeing or experiencing the results of sin. Now, Yeshua Hawkins, overseer of the house of Yahweh, has been enlightening the world with the laws of Yahweh, the only true solution to the curses mankind faces today. You can read for yourself just how simple these laws are and the extreme benefits one receives from practicing them by contacting the house of Yahweh today.
You can contact them by writing, calling, or emailing them. And don't forget, when you do, to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. You can write the House of Yahweh at P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can also call them at 1-800-613-9494. Or you can also email them at info@yahweh.com. Now, don't forget, you can visit the website at www.yahweh.com or www.yisraelhawkins.com. And of course, all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen.
Don't go anywhere. Up next is Yeshua Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.